Hello all, and welcome to Explained with Dylan. Today I'm going to be talking about a country that is not a country, Somaliland. Somaliland is a country, but it's not a country. Am I confusing you? Because honestly, I am confusing myself a bit. Somaliland is technically a country, but it is not recognized by any countries, thus making it not a country. Again, confusing, but I will explain more, hence why I am explained with Dylan. In 1960, Somaliland, the British colony, became an independent country. 5 days later, Somalia, the Italian colony, became a country as well. So, the two newly formed countries decided to join together into one country, Somalia. Because if we have learned anything in the past 100 years, it is a great idea to mix two countries of completely different ethnicities together to form one country, because that always works great for everyone involved. At the time, it actually made plenty of sense for the two countries, because they were small, they didn't have a ton of population, and they had no economy. They're newly formed countries, so they're just thriving out on their own. It makes sense. Plus, all the people are technically Somali and do have very similar ethnicities, although not the exact same. So you would think it might work together. But the problem is, the unified country of Somalia is composed of many, many smaller clans. And all of these clans hate one another. Now, Somaliland is composed mostly of one clan, the Isaacs. So, the Isaac family decided that they did not want to be in the same country as the rest of these smaller clans, so they decided to become independent. The problem is, Somalia did not agree with that. They didn't want them to become independent, so that started a civil war in 1981. That continued for 10 years until Somaliland declared independence from Somalia. Somalia did not agree with that whatsoever, but here's the problem. They were in another civil war at the time. As I mentioned, all of these clans hate one another, which means that they are constantly fighting. So, the Somali government did not have the resources at the time to go suppress Somaliland from it not becoming a country, which led to Somaliland just starting to run independently. Today, Somalia is a mess. The northern parts are controlled by Somaliland and the autonomous region of Puntland, something I might have to make a different explain with Dylan about sometime. The rest of it is even more of a mess, with parts being controlled by municipal governments, terrorist groups such as ISIS and Al-Qaeda, Ethiopia, and even the African Union directly. But Somaliland has found stability in a place in the world that is not at all stable. That's partially because basically the entire thing is composed of the Isaac family, which if you disagree with the Isaac family, you won't exactly be very successful, to say the least. But even still, they are a stable country, unlike Somalia. So, if Somaliland completely runs on its own, is it a country? And that depends. You see, there are two theories on what makes a country. First of all, there's the declarative theory, which kind of describes itself. If you declare yourself to be a country, you are a country. You just have to have a permanent population, defined borders, and a government. The other theory is what catches Somaliland, the constitutional theory. That says that you're only a country if you're recognized by other countries. And that's what creates controversies in places like Palestine, Taiwan, and Kosovo. Because they all definitely have defined borders, a government, and a population. But they are not fully recognized. Somaliland is recognized by the grand total of 0 countries, which causes quite the issue. It is really weird that no one recognizes Somaliland to be a country, given that they have international relations with Ethiopia, Djibouti, South Africa, the UK, Sweden, Taiwan, and Liberland. another country that is not a country whatsoever. I'll make another video about that someday. Anyways, my point being is that Somaliland very clearly has relations with these countries, and they acknowledge Somaliland, but they still don't officially recognize Somaliland, which means that Somaliland can't actually be a country. Even though, like I said, they have a government, they have a defined territory, and they have a population. They're completely self-governing, it's completely independent, and yet no one else recognizes them to be a real country, which means that they are not technically a real country. The biggest reason that no one recognizes them is probably because no one really wants to reward a civil war with independence. Because a lot of the countries around the world are in that exact same situation. If they go and say, hey, Somaliland, you won a civil war, we'll let you become independent, then there are likely territories in their territory that will say, hey, if Somaliland was just allowed to become independent after they won a civil war, why don't we give it a shot? So, no one really wants to risk it. As well as the fact that no one truly has a reason to be on the bad side of Somalia. What did Somalia ever do to anyone, really? I mean, it has plenty of things going wrong, but Somalia doesn't do much for international relations, so it's not like any country would be purposely trying to pick on it. This could very well change very soon. You see, very recently, back in January, they found oil in Somaliland. That is an amazing thing. I don't need to explain to you why oil is amazing for a country to find. Obviously, oil is not amazing overall nowadays, but for a country, it is a blessing. There is nothing better a country can get than oil, because this will boost the economy like crazy, and it will improve international relations, because everyone wants oil. But countries really like to be on good relations with the country that's supplying them oil, obviously. Which means that if Somaliland plays their cards right, if they start selling their oil, then it might force countries to recognize Somaliland as a country, which means that Somaliland would be a country. Obviously, though, the problem being that it would not be fully recognized, which would put in the state, as I mentioned before, with Taiwan, Palestine, and Kosovo, where you're not entirely sure it's a country, but it's way more of a country than it is now. I do truly think that Somaliland deserves to be independent. They have been running completely on their own. They have no relation with Somalia. So why shouldn't they be independent? It really does not make sense to me. So I hope for their sake that this goes through and that they are able to become an independent country. They have definitely waited for long enough. But for now, thanks for watching.